The galaxy had 847 documented intelligent species, and every single one of them could kill a human in hand-to-hand combat. Ryan Torres knew this fact intimately as he stood in the orientation hall of the Stellar Defense Academy, surrounded by cadets whose evolutionary advantages made Earth's apex predators look harmless. The towering Korvax warriors possessed exoskeletal armor that could deflect plasma rounds. The graceful Solari operated with enhanced neural processing that made human reflexes seem glacial. The insectoid Chithrax communicated through pheromone clouds so complex they could coordinate battalion-level tactics without speaking a word. And then there was Ryan, 5'10", 175 pounds of soft flesh and slow twitch muscle fibers, representing the only species stupid enough to achieve spaceflight despite being evolutionarily outclassed by everything from their own planet's wildlife to the civilizations they'd just met. Attention, cadets! Admiral Threxis, a reptilian Sauran whose crimson scales denoted command authority, silenced the hall with a voice that needed no translator amplification. His species had conquered 14 star systems before humans discovered fire. You stand here because your governments believe you represent the finest warriors your species can produce. The Crucible will determine if they were correct. The Crucible. Ryan had read the classified briefings. 7 days on Torak 4, a training world where gravity crushed, atmosphere poisoned, and wildlife hunted with the efficiency of 1,000,000 years of unchallenged predatory evolution. Most species sent their cadets in teams. The Korvax formed warrior bonds. The Solari established mental networks. The Chithrax simply never operated as individuals. Humans, as usual, did things differently. Survival parameters are simple. Threxis paced the platform, his clawed feet clicking against alien metal. No weapons beyond standard gear, no technology that provides combat advantage. No extraction until day 7 at the northern beacon. Use your emergency signal, and you fail. A Korvax named Drentok, whose battle scars marked him as a veteran of 3 tribal wars before even reaching the academy, snorted with undisguised contempt. His translator rendered the sound as derisive laughter. The human will not survive the first night, Drentok announced to his packmates, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. Their species possesses no natural defenses. No armor, no fangs, no enhanced senses. They are prey animals who stumbled into space. A Solari named Ixara, her silver skin shimmering with neural activity, nodded agreement. Statistical analysis confirms human physiological inadequacy. Bone density insufficient, reaction time suboptimal, thermal regulation primitive. Projected survival time 6 hours, 3 minutes. The Chithrax unit designated Colony 9 clicked its mandibles in a pattern that translated to amused consensus. Biological assessment complete. Human specimen unsuitable for hostile environment protocols. Ryan said nothing. He adjusted his survival pack, checked his gear with practiced efficiency, and followed the others toward the transport bay. But something old stirred in his chest. The same instinct that had driven his ancestors to climb mountains simply because they were there. The same stubbornness that had made them cross oceans in wooden ships and walk on airless moons, despite every rational fear screaming at them to stop. His grandmother had taught him wilderness survival in the Rockies, back when he was 12. She'd been a smoke jumper for 30 years, parachuting into forest fires that sent everyone else running. Kid, she'd said one night as they made camp above the treeline, every creature on this planet is better than us at something. Bears are stronger. Wolves hunt better. Eagles see farther. Mountain lions move faster. But we're still here, and most of them aren't. You know why? Ryan had shaken his head. Because when everything else runs from the fire, we run toward it. And because we're the only species on Earth that other predators learn to fear without ever beating us in a straight fight. The transport to Torak 4 took 8 hours. Alliance formed naturally. Korvax warriors practiced combat forms. Solari engaged in rapid-fire intellectual exchanges that sounded like crystal chimes. Chithrax synchronized their pheromone patterns for optimal hive efficiency. Ryan spent the time studying topographical data, memorizing weather patterns, and cataloging the behavioral notes on Torak 4's wildlife. The planet had been terraformed 3,000 years ago by a now-extinct civilization, then abandoned when their empire collapsed. Nature had reclaimed it with enthusiasm, filling every ecological niche with predators. Final briefing. Captain Xylora, a cyborg whose original species Ryan couldn't identify, appeared on the transport's main display. Torak 4 operates at 1.4 standard gravity. Atmospheric oxygen levels are adequate, but contain trace alkaloids that will cause progressive neurological degradation in most species. Temperature variance ranges from -30 to +50 Celsius. Native wildlife includes multiple apex predators rated Class 8 or higher on the threat matrix. Drentok flexed his armored limbs with anticipation. Ixara's neural network pulsed with calculation. Colony 9 processed the data through their collective intelligence. Ryan checked his gear one last time. Standard survival kit, emergency shelter, water purification system, basic medical supplies, and an emergency beacon that meant failure if activated. No weapons, no technological advantages, nothing that would compensate for being the weakest, slowest, most vulnerable cadet on the planet. Drop zones are randomized across a 100-kilometer grid. Xylora's display showed the deployment pattern. Extraction occurs at the northern beacon in precisely 7 days. Survive, and you pass. Fail, and your government receives a body bag. The drop pods launched in sequence, each cadet hurtling toward the surface alone. Ryan watched through his viewport as the others deployed, some managing to land near allies, others scattered across the brutal landscape. His pod hit with enough force to crack 3 ribs if the crash webbing hadn't absorbed most of the impact. When the dust cleared, Ryan found himself in a canyon of crystalline stone that hummed with electromagnetic resonance. The air tasted like copper. The increased gravity made every movement feel like wearing a weighted vest. He was completely, utterly alone. Most species would panic at that isolation. Korvax needed their packs for psychological stability. Silari required constant mental stimulation from their networks. Chithrax literally couldn't process individual thought without hive-mind connection. Ryan smiled grimly as he shouldered his pack and started climbing toward higher ground. Solitude wasn't his weakness. It was humanity's oldest survival skill. By nightfall, he'd established camp in a cave system near running water. The crystalline formations provided wind protection, and the elevated position gave tactical advantage. He'd just finished securing his shelter when the howling started. The sound echoed through the canyons like nothing on Earth. Part raw, part ultrasonic shriek, entirely alien. It was answered by another howl, then another, until the entire valley resonated with predatory calls. Through the cave mouth, Ryan could see them moving in the darkness below. Creatures the size of grizzly bears, but built like hunting cats, with bioluminescent spines that glowed blue-white in the shadows. Their eyes reflected moonlight like searchlights as they prowled through the valley in coordinated patterns that spoke of pack intelligence. The Academy files called them spine stalkers, apex predators that hunted in groups and had killed more cadets over the years than any other Torak 4 lifeform. Recommended survival strategy: hide and hope. But as Ryan watched the pack move through his valley, he noticed something the files hadn't mentioned. The spine stalkers moved with purpose, but also with hesitation. They paused frequently, testing the air, their body language suggesting uncertainty rather than confidence. It took Ryan several minutes to realize what was happening. The predators could sense him in his cave, but they weren't approaching. Instead, they maintained their distance, circling the perimeter of his position as if afraid to get closer. Ryan had read about this phenomenon in Earth's anthropological records. Before humans developed advanced weapons, before civilization, his ancestors had somehow learned to make apex predators fear them. Lions, tigers, bears, creatures that could easily kill a human in direct combat, had learned to avoid human settlements, to fear human presence without understanding why. Field researchers called it the apex predator paradox. Something in human behavior, human scent, human movement patterns triggered an instinctive avoidance response in other predators. Scientists had theories. Maybe the smell of fire, maybe the threat of coordinated retaliation, maybe something deeper in evolutionary memory, but nobody knew for certain. Now on an alien world light years from Earth, Ryan was watching the same phenomenon play out with creatures that had never encountered a human before. The spine stalkers prowled the valley edges for 2 hours, their bioluminescent spines casting eerie shadows across the crystalline formations. But none of them approached his cave. Eventually, they moved on to hunt easier prey, leaving Ryan alone in the alien wilderness. For the first time since leaving Earth, Ryan allowed himself to believe he might actually survive this. The next 3 days tested every survival skill he'd ever learned. The gravity drained his energy. The atmospheric alkaloids caused persistent headaches and occasional visual distortions. The temperature swings forced him to constantly adjust his shelter and movement patterns. But Ryan kept moving toward the extraction point, maintaining a steady pace that would have seemed suicidal to any other species. He traveled during both day and night cycles, sleeping only when exhaustion forced rest. He drank from water sources that other cadets couldn't approach due to territorial creatures. He walked through areas marked as impassable death zones on the tactical maps. And everywhere he went, the native wildlife stepped aside. It was on day 4 that he found Drentok. The Korvax warrior was trapped on a crystal ledge, surrounded by a pack of smaller predators that looked like metallic wolves with serrated claws. Drentok's natural armor was cracked and bleeding green ichor. He held his emergency beacon in one massive hand, but hadn't activated it yet. Pride wouldn't let him call for help, even as the predators closed in. Ryan could have walked past. The Korvax had mocked him, predicted his failure, dismissed him as inferior. Military doctrine suggested conserving resources for personal survival in hostile situations. Instead, Ryan did something that would be discussed in academy tactical classes for decades. He walked directly into the pack of predators, empty hands at his sides, and every single one of them scattered like startled prey animals. Drentok stared in absolute bewilderment as the metallic wolf pack fled before Ryan like frightened puppies. The massive Korvax had spent 4 days fighting for survival, his warrior's pride pushed to its limits. Now this small human was walking through deadly predators like they were nervous housecats. How? Drentok managed, his translator crackling with confusion and grudging respect. Ryan extended a hand to help the Korvax down from the ledge. Your people hunt in groups, right? Warriors supporting each other in battle. The pack is strength. Drentok accepted the assistance despite his pride. The individual is weakness. My species learned something different. Ryan checked the Korvax's wounds with practiced efficiency. Sometimes the individual has to become something the pack can't handle. They traveled together for half a day, but Ryan noticed how the alien wilderness reacted to their combined presence. The predators that had avoided him completely now watched from the shadows, calculating new odds. With two potential prey animals together, hunting instincts overrode fear. We need to split up, Ryan said during a rest stop. Together we're prey, alone we're something else. Drentok's pride bristled. Warriors do not abandon battle companions. Not abandonment, strategy. Ryan pointed toward the crystalline ridges. You take the high route. Your armor can handle sharp edges. Your strength lets you climb where predators can't follow. I'll take the valleys. We meet at extraction. The Korvax considered this, his warrior's mind recognizing sound tactics. And if you encounter something you cannot handle alone, Ryan's smile held no humor, then I'll handle it anyway. They parted ways at the next canyon fork. Drentok climbed toward the jagged ridgelines, while Ryan descended into the shadow valleys where the most dangerous predators hunted. It was in those valleys that Ryan encountered the Academy's secret weapon. The files had mentioned Class 8 threats, but they hadn't detailed the storm serpent. 30 meters of crystalline scales and bioelectric fury, capable of generating localized electromagnetic storms that could scramble electronics and disrupt biological nervous systems. Ryan found its den by accident, following a water source deeper into the canyon system. The creature was magnificent, a perfect apex predator that had likely never encountered anything it couldn't kill. It sensed his approach immediately, emerging from its crystal cave with movements that made the ground tremble. Energy crackled along its spine as it reared up to full height, easily tall enough to swallow a shuttle. Its eyes, each one larger than Ryan's head, fixed on the small human with unmistakable predatory focus. For a moment that stretched into eternity, predator and human stared at each other across the ancient divide between hunter and prey. Then the storm serpent did something unprecedented in Academy records. It lowered its massive head in what could only be described as acknowledgement, then slithered back into its cave. Ryan stood in the Crystal Valley for several minutes, processing what had just occurred. The creature hadn't just avoided him. It had shown respect, recognition, as if it understood on some instinctive level that he represented something it didn't want to challenge. Word seemed to spread through the alien ecosystem faster than should have been possible. Predators moved away from his path. Scavengers avoided areas he'd recently occupied. Even the aggressive crystal flora retracted their stinging tendrils as he passed. On day 5, Ryan encountered Ixara. The Solari was in serious trouble. Her species' advanced intellect was useless against the raw biological challenges of Torak 4, and her delicate constitution was failing under constant stress. Ryan found her sheltering in a shallow cave, her silver skin pale with exhaustion and early atmospheric poisoning. The human, her voice barely registered through the translator. You should not have lasted this long. My calculations were precise. Your calculations were based on incomplete data. Ryan checked her condition with trained efficiency. She needed medical attention, water, food, resources that would significantly impact his own survival chances. Why are you helping me? Ixara asked as Ryan shared his water purification tablets and emergency rations. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. My species has a saying, no one left behind. Doesn't matter what you said about me. What matters is you need help and I can provide it. That's not logical. Resources are limited. My survival reduces your success probability. Maybe, Ryan agreed. But that's not how humans calculate survival. He stayed with her through the worst of her atmospheric sickness, ensuring she was stable before continuing toward the extraction point. But he left her with more than medical aid. He left her with a hand-drawn map marking safe water sources, shelter locations, and predator territories. Information that had taken him days to gather through careful observation and near-death experiences. Why? She called after him as he prepared to leave. Because tomorrow you might be the one who saves someone else, he replied simply. Day 6 brought a massive storm system that swept across Torak 4 with lethal intensity. Crystal lightning crackled through the air, and the temperature dropped 40 degrees in less than an hour. Ryan took shelter in a cave system that showed signs of recent occupation by other cadets. Scratched messages on the walls told a story of cooperation and survival. But as the storm raged outside, Ryan realized he was being watched. The Spine Stalker pack had returned, but they weren't hunting. They were sheltering from the same storm, and their behavior toward the human was completely unprecedented. Instead of territorial aggression, they showed what could only be described as curiosity mixed with caution. The pack leader, a massive creature with scars that spoke of countless battles, approached slowly. It stopped just outside striking distance and performed a complex series of movements, not threatening displays, but what animal behaviorists would later identify as communication attempts. Ryan responded instinctively, using body language techniques his grandmother had taught him for dealing with large predators. Calm confidence, non-threatening posture, but absolute certainty in his position in the ecosystem. The spine stalker tilted its head, processing this response. Then it did something that would reshape galactic understanding of human-animal interaction. It settled down near the cave entrance, positioning itself as a guardian against smaller predators seeking shelter from the storm. For the entire night, Ryan slept protected by a creature that the Academy classified as one of the most dangerous life forms in known space. When morning came and the storm passed, the spine stalker rose, looked directly at Ryan one final time, and departed with what could only be described as a respectful farewell. Ryan completed the rest of his journey to the extraction point in contemplative silence. The experience on Torak 4 had taught him something profound about humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans weren't physically superior to other species. They were something entirely different. the apex social predators who other predators instinctively recognized as dangerous, not because of strength or speed, but because of something far more ancient and primal. As he crested the final ridge and saw the extraction beacon in the valley below, Ryan could see dozens of other cadets already gathered. Many looked worse for wear. Some were injured. A few were being treated for serious atmospheric poisoning, but they had survived. More importantly, they had learned to work together. Korvac's warriors were sharing supplies with delicate Solari. Chithrak's units were providing technological support to less advanced species. The harsh environment had forced them to overcome natural prejudices and recognize mutual dependence. But as Ryan walked down the slope toward the gathering, something extraordinary happened. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. For a moment, the entire group of alien cadets stared at the human who had walked alone through their trial and emerged unchanged. Then Drentok's voice boomed across the valley. The pack is strength, but the individual who walks alone carries the strength of the entire pack. It was, Ryan realized, the highest compliment a Korvac's warrior could give. The extraction shuttle arrived precisely on schedule. As cadets loaded aboard, Ryan noticed the changed dynamics. The rigid species hierarchies from orientation had dissolved into something more fluid and cooperative. The trial had taught valuable lessons about survival, adaptation, and unity, but it had taught them something else. Sometimes the most dangerous predator in the galaxy was the one that walked alone, not because it couldn't find a pack, but because it didn't need one. 2 weeks later, Ryan stood before the Stellar Defense Academy's High Council. Representatives from dozens of species filled the crystalline conference chamber, their various forms creating a symphony of different communication methods. But every eye, sensor, and optical organ focused on the holographic data streaming across the central display. Admiral Threxis gestured toward the recordings from Torak 4 with one clawed hand. 7 cycles of trials. Thousands of cadets from 143 species. Never has any individual cadet achieved what we witnessed during trial cycle 931. The hologram showed Ryan walking calmly through a pack of spine stalkers, the deadly predators parting before him. Another sequence displayed the storm serpent's unprecedented behavior, the ultimate apex predator acknowledging a cadet's presence with what could only be interpreted as respect. The biological impossibility of these interactions cannot be overstated. Professor Zelthar, the Academy's chief xenobiologist, clicked his mandibles with agitation. Torak 4's ecosystem is carefully balanced. Each predator species occupies a specific niche. Behavior patterns are predictable, documented across millennia. What this human accomplished violates every established principle of interspecies dynamics. Cadet Torres employed no technology beyond standard survival gear, Thraxis continued, his scales shifting to deep purple, confusion mixed with concern. No pheromone manipulators, no neural disruptors, no behavioral modification devices. Yet somehow he achieved absolute dominance over an ecosystem that has challenged our greatest warriors for generations. General Thurvax, the Korvax representative, slammed one massive fist on the table with enough force to make the entire chamber vibrate. Dominance through strength, we understand. Dominance through intellect, the Solari have shown us. Dominance through technology, many species achieve, but this is something else entirely. Perhaps we should ask the human directly, Ambassador Ixara suggested. The delicate Solari had requested assignment to the investigation immediately after her rescue from Torak 4. Cadet Torres has been recalled from advanced training, Threxis said. He should arrive. The chamber doors opened, admitting Ryan in his standard academy uniform. He carried himself with the same quiet confidence they'd observed on Torak 4 and showed no signs of intimidation despite facing the highest-ranking officers in Stellar Defense Command. Cadet Torres reporting as ordered, sir. Ryan offered a crisp salute. At ease, Cadet, Threxis replied. We have questions regarding your performance during trial cycle 931. Ryan nodded, settling into a perfectly balanced stance, ready for anything, committed to nothing, calmly alert. Professor Zelthar leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting database searches running in real time. Cadet Torres, Our analysis indicates you achieved unprecedented cooperation from hostile alien life forms. Can you explain the methodology you employed? I didn't employ any methodology, Professor, Ryan replied honestly. I just behaved naturally. The silence that followed was profound. Naturally, General Thurvax rumbled. You walked alone through territory that requires entire warrior packs to travel through safely. You approached apex predators that our finest fighters avoid. This is natural for humans. Ryan considered the question carefully. Maybe not for all humans, sir, but for humans who grew up learning from their planet's natural environment. Yes, Earth is what the galaxy classifies as a Class 12 death world. Every ecosystem is packed with creatures that can kill us easily. But we're still there, and most of them aren't, because we learned something different than what other species learned. And what is that? Ambassador Ixara asked, her silver eyes bright with curiosity. We learned how to make other predators afraid of us without being stronger than them, Ryan explained. Not through technology or weapons, but through something much older, something that happened before we even developed language. Threxus's scales shifted to deep blue, fascination mixed with caution. Continue, Cadet. Every species in this room evolved to be good at one thing, Ryan said, his voice calm and confident. Korvax evolved to be ultimate warriors, strong, armored, fearless. Solari evolved for brilliant intellect, fast thinking, perfect memory, incredible pattern recognition. Chithrax evolved for perfect coordination and efficiency. Saurons became master strategists. He paused, looking around at representatives of the galaxy's most successful species. Humans evolved to be the ultimate persistence predators. Not the strongest, not the smartest, not the fastest, but the ones who never stop coming. The ones who adapt to anything, survive everything, and keep moving forward no matter what. But this still doesn't explain the predator behavior, Professor Zelthar protested. Fear responses are typically triggered by demonstrated superiority in combat capabilities or chemical intimidation factors. It's not about superiority, Ryan replied. It's about recognition. Every predator has instincts that tell them when they're facing something that won't fight them or run from them, something that will hunt them instead. The room fell silent as the implications settled in. You're saying that Earth predators recognize humans as, Threxus began, then stopped, his scales cycling rapidly through confused color patterns. As the species that hunts predators, Ryan finished quietly. Not for food, not for territory, but because we can. When something threatens us or our pack, we don't fight it or run from it. We follow it home, learn its weaknesses, and eliminate the threat permanently. General Thurvax's tusks gleamed as he considered this. The persistence predator concept. I have read military histories of this strategy, but those describe hunting prey animals across vast distances, not psychological warfare against apex predators. Same strategy, different application, Ryan explained. When early humans encountered a lion pride that threatened their tribe, they didn't fight the lions directly. They tracked the pride for weeks, learned their patterns, their territories, their vulnerabilities. Then they systematically eliminated the threat using tools, traps, and coordination the lions couldn't predict or counter. He continued, eventually, word spread through the ecosystem, not through language, but through instinct. The smell of humans became associated with the complete destruction of anything that threatened them. Lions, tigers, bears, creatures that could easily kill individual humans, learned to avoid human territory entirely. Ambassador Ixara processed this through her enhanced intellect, running rapid calculations. You're describing an evolutionary arms race where humans develop the ultimate deterrent, the credible threat of total retaliation. Exactly, Ryan agreed. We became the species that other species don't want to provoke, not because we're stronger, but because we're more dangerous in ways they can't understand or predict. Threxus leaned back in his command chair, his ancient mind working through the strategic implications. And this instinct transfers to alien ecosystems. Apparently, Ryan replied. I think what happened on Torak 4 was that the predators recognized something in my behavior, my scent, my movement patterns that triggered the same avoidance response Earth predators learned over millions of years. I wasn't trying to intimidate them. I was just being human. Professor Zelthar's mandibles clicked rapidly with excitement. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies psychology. If humans carry inherent deterrent factors that work across multiple evolutionary lines, the implications for exploration and defense are extraordinary. It also explains something else, General Thurvax added thoughtfully. Human military units consistently outperform projections in combat scenarios involving unknown alien threats. We attributed this to adaptability and tactical flexibility, but perhaps there's a deeper factor at work. Permission to speak freely, sir, Ryan asked. Threxis nodded. Granted. I think you're all missing the most important point, Ryan said. This isn't about humans being superior to other species. It's about humans being different in a way that's useful for galactic civilization. Every species here brings unique strengths to the Alliance. Korvac's courage, Solari intellect, Chithrak's efficiency, Soran leadership. Humans bring something else, the ability to walk into the unknown and make it familiar. He gestured toward the holographic display, still showing scenes from Torak 4. The galaxy is full of unexplored worlds, unknown threats, and hostile environments. Most species approach these challenges by building better weapons, stronger armor, or smarter technology. Humans approach them by learning to belong there. You're suggesting that human exploration capabilities represent a unique strategic resource, Threxis observed, his scales settling into contemplative green. I'm suggesting that every species in the Stellar Defense Alliance evolved to dominate their home environment in specific ways, Ryan replied. Humans evolved to dominate any environment by becoming part of it, not through conquest, but through adaptation and persistence. The council chamber fell quiet as assembled representatives considered this perspective. For species that had spent millennia defining themselves through superior capabilities, the concept of strength through adaptability was profoundly alien. Finally, Threxis spoke. Cadet Torres, your trial results have already qualified you for accelerated advancement through the Academy program. However, given these revelations about human capabilities, we are prepared to offer something unprecedented. Ryan waited respectfully. Direct commission to Special Operations Command with immediate assignment to First Contact Protocols, Threxis announced. The Stellar Defense Alliance has recently detected signals from the Andromeda Spiral, evidence of previously unknown civilizations. Someone will need to make initial contact to walk into completely alien territory and establish peaceful relations with species we know nothing about. The Admiral continued. Normally, such missions require full battle fleets and extensive technological support. But perhaps what we really need is someone who can walk alone into the unknown and convince the apex predators to step aside. Ryan considered the offer carefully. It meant leaving behind normal academy progression, abandoning the safety of established protocols, and venturing into truly unexplored space where no human had ever gone. It meant walking alone again, but on a galactic scale. I accept, sir, Ryan replied without hesitation. As the council session concluded and representatives began filing out, Ambassador Ixara approached Ryan one final time. I owe you an apology, she said, her silver eyes reflecting genuine emotion. My calculations about human capabilities were not just wrong, they were irrelevant. I was measuring you against the wrong parameters. No apology necessary, Ryan replied. You were working with the best data available. That's good science. Perhaps, Ixara agreed, but I failed to account for the most important variable, the incalculable nature of a species that refuses to accept limitations. 3 months later, Ryan stood alone in the airlock of the exploration vessel Pathfinder, preparing for humanity's first contact with the civilizations of the Andromeda Spiral. Behind him lay the Milky Way galaxy, with all its known species and established protocols. Ahead lay the vast unknown of intergalactic space, filled with civilizations and challenges no one could predict. The airlock cycled open, and Ryan stepped through into the unknown. He walked alone, just as he always had. And somewhere in the quantum foam between galaxies, apex predators he had never seen were already beginning to step aside. Human civilization had finally found its place in the cosmos, not as conquerors or servants, but as the species that could walk into any darkness and make it home. The persistent predators who never stopped coming. The individuals who carried the strength of the entire pack simply by refusing to acknowledge they were supposed to be prey. Ryan Torres smiled as the Pathfinder's engines engaged, carrying him toward the Andromeda spiral and whatever waited there. The galaxy had 847 documented intelligent species, and every single one of them could kill a human in hand-to-hand combat. But none of them could stop one from walking forward.